All right, today we are going to talk about proper removal and installation of a wheel onto your Volvo. Now, while it might seem like a simple task, there's actually a few important keys to doing this that can help you preserve the finish of your wheels, properly torque them down, and properly center them so that when you're driving you don't get a wobble. First thing we're going to talk about is what's the first step. So before we get to jacking the car up or any of that, let's talk about just breaking the lug nuts loose. Now, if you jack the car up and you try and do the lug nuts, the wheel's going to spin a little bit. So it's a lot easier to break them loose first. Now, we have a couple tools that we use for this. We don't recommend using an impact gun on this unless you're not really too worried about the finish of your wheels. Now, while those work really good, they can scratch the surface of the wheels and the lug nut wells pretty easily. So we tend to do this one by hand. I'm going to use my breaker bar, 1/2-inch drive with a 19mm socket. Now, depending on what lug nuts you have, you may need a different socket. Now, as long as you have the right one and it matches, that's the important part. Now, if you don't have a breaker bar, if you want to have a cool portable tool to keep in your car or in your toolbox, we offer a couple other options as well. And one of them is this by Gorilla, and this is an extending lug wrench. So this piece here extends out, gives you lots of leverage, comes with the most commonly needed sockets that work on any model Volvo. Another option we have is another one made by Gorilla as well, and this is actually like a standard tire iron, but it's collapsible to take up less space. All you got to do when you want to use it is pull those off and lock them in place, and then you got 4 different sizes. Work on pretty much any car out there. So those are the options that we have for these. Let's get to it and break these lug nuts loose. All right, so now we have our wheel off, we're ready to talk about what do we do to get it back on. Now, you might have taken them off to do your brakes or to rotate your tires or for whatever reason. But the few key things that we need to pay attention to when we're putting it back on to make sure it's centered and to make sure it's properly torqued. So the first thing I want to talk about in properly centering them is going to be this. This is your hub. And on this hub right here, on this little mating surface that goes into the wheel, this needs to be nice and clean in order to positively engage the matching female hole on the back of the wheel so that they get in there perfectly centered, lays perfectly flush. So let's talk about that and get a wire brush and clean this up. So now we got ready to put the wheel back on, let's talk about that clean hub mating surface. Now here's the back side of the wheel, and here's the female part that engages positively on that male part of the hub that we talked about in the last section. So what's important here is that we get this part clean and we get it properly centered. Now this is a Volvo OEM wheel, so it's already a perfectly sized 65.1mm hub to match that. Now a lot of aftermarket wheels, the ones we make included, are of a larger center bore on them and include a hub-centric ring, whether plastic or metal. Now this is totally normal and it's a very common practice, but those need to be in there correct and centered and placed when you put this back on to ensure that it's going to center itself and you won't get wobbles. So before you put it back on, double check and see, is your hub-centric ring sitting in the wheel here, or is it on the hub, or is it lost or fallen off somewhere? It needs to be placed in here or on the hub so that you can center it all. Now, once you've determined that, you've got that all done, we also want to talk about making sure this is clean. It's normal for there to be some corrosion in there, but what we like to do is clean this a little bit with a brush. If it's real bad, sometimes a wire brush will help. And also, same thing goes for back here at the surface where it's going to mate into the face of the brake rotor hat. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the cleaner you can get it, the better. If you have any grime back there or anything, it's really important to get some brake cleaner or get something in there that's going to clean that off. So same goes for the hub side of this. And if we look on the hub on the vehicle, look right here. Now this one, I just did the brakes on my S70 here not too long ago, so the rotor face is still pretty clean. The hub, however, does have some corrosion on it. Nothing bad, but still enough where I like to at least get in there with a little bit of a brush and clean off so that it'll give it a nice, centered, positive, flat engagement when we put the wheel back on. Now if you want to get real crazy with it, a wire brush is going to work a lot better, and that also comes in handy if you are somewhere where they salt the roads and you get a lot of corrosion. You may need to spend a pretty good amount of time with a wire brush or some fine sandpaper just to get it all clean. Okay, now we've got our wheel off, we've got the hub clean, we've got the mating surface on the inboard side of the wheel clean, we're ready to put it back on. And one thing that Volvo does that was a little bit annoying when they switched to this front-wheel drive platform like my S70 here is that they don't use a traditional wheel stud and a wheel lug nut. They use a wheel bolt, just like what we took off. So when that becomes a pain is when you're trying to put this thing back on and properly align it and everything. So we actually have, and we make, these cool tools. Now this is for earlier model P80 cars like mine here, and this one's for later P2 cars. The only difference is thread pitch and size. And these are our wheel install guides. And these come in very handy. It's a must-have for your toolbox if you ever spend time with Volvos. And all it does is simply threads in to one of the holes here to give you a guide to start the wheel on and to hang the wheel on. All you got to do is thread it in by hand there, and you are ready to go. Now the other important note that I want to talk about when we're putting these back on is going to be this. And this is just your rotor bolt that holds it in place while you're bolting everything together, and it has this little pin style off it. And now sometimes you'll see that this is just gone completely, and that's okay. And sometimes you'll find that this is just a small bolt head and not this full pin style. But what we need to be aware of for like the pin style like this one, which is how they came for Volvo, is how it aligns on the back of the wheel. And I'll show you here. On the back of the wheel, you'll see the 5 lug bolt holes, but then you'll also see these matching voids that go next to it. And if you notice, there's one that has an open casting and doesn't have these little pieces in there. This is not going to bolt on straight and is not going to bolt on properly at all if you don't take that rotor alignment bolt and match it up with this spot here. So it's important that you do that to save yourself some frustration and time. So now we got that on, let's pop our wheel on. So now that we've got our wheel set in place with our wheel installation guide here holding it in place, we can go ahead and put our lug bolts back in. Now we're not going to final tighten these like this with the car up on the jack. We're just going to go ahead and get these started in here and get them hand tight. So it's just a matter now of getting them started on here, and don't worry about getting them super tight. Just get them on there most of the way. Now on this one, we do want to go generally in kind of a crisscross pattern to get it set down evenly, but it's not quite as vital as it is when we're doing our final torque, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. Our last one here, we simply undo our wheel install guide like so, and replace it with the final lug bolt. So now that we got the wheel back on, what we need to talk about is final tightening of these lug bolts. And we always recommend the use of a torque wrench, doing this by hand. Don't use an impact, and if you don't have to, don't do it with an uncalibrated system. Using a tire iron or a lug wrench or something like that can work and get you through in a pinch, but the fact that it's not precise and it's not going to be even just by nature means that that may lead to some potential problems down the line, especially if you do them too tight and they get stuck. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our lug wrench calibrated to the correct foot-pounds. Now, if you are unsure about that, your owner's manual will show you exactly what you need to torque your wheels down to. It's going to be different for different models, so make sure you check it before you do it and don't just guess. So now that we're going to tighten these down, let's talk about how do we do it, how do we ensure it gets even. We want to go in what the Volvo refers to as kind of like a star pattern or a cross pattern. So we'll start here, go across, skip one, skip one, skip one. And I like to go through a couple times just to ensure that it's all evenly done. Now the main idea here is just that you're not cranking one way down on one side, one right next to it, and getting this side really tight and letting this side pop up a little bit. That's just going to be a little bit of a natural pathway to unevenness. So let's get going. So that's the basics of removal and installation properly of a wheel on a Volvo. If you have any questions on any of the procedures here, check our website for more resources, more tech tips. Also, if you have questions about the tools that we use, like the wheel install guide or our lug wrenches, same thing. Give us a call or check our website at www.ipdusa.com.